students, also fellow lecturer. A very warm welcome to you all. My name is Taufik Maulana Firdaus, and I am honored to be your host for today's 23rd series of Tel-U Tech Talk. As a lecturer and researcher myself, I am passionate about technology and digital transformations. I am excited to guide you through these insightful discussions on the future of B2B commerce, trends, challenges, and opportunities. To help us navigate this dynamic field, we are privileged to have two outstanding speakers from LIVO, which is a specialist digital transformations and delivery consultancy with us. So, please welcome Cale Maxwell as a CEO at LIVO from BBDO Worldwide Company and Mohamed Elgharabawy as a head of front-end technology at LIVO. We have an exciting and insightful session ahead, so I encourage you all to engage by asking questions at the end of the sessions and make the most of this opportunity. Without further ado, let's get started. So, please welcome Cale Maxwell and Mohamed Elgharabawy.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Cale.
And now I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me one moment.
So while Cale is doing that, Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum salam.
For those of you who are fasting, it's pretty much time for your buka puasa anyway. So you probably have, 2 to 3 hours. So I promise we will keep this as light as possible. I know you're all hungry, thirsty. Maybe you're preparing to go to your pasar malam or whatever. So we'll keep this very short and sweet. And if you have any questions or anything, you don't have to wait until the end of the session. If you have any questions at the middle, feel free to interrupt. Or if you are more comfortable dropping your questions in the chat box as well, please do that. And we will just keep an eye on it and address them as soon as we can. Cale, all yours.
Fantastic. So just some brief introductions to start with. As mentioned, my name is Cale Maxwell. I'm the CEO of LIVO. We're a digital transformation consultancy. We're part of the Omnicom network, which is a global communications and advertising network. LIVO's been in operation for about 24 years now. So we've done lots of different technology projects over that time, with a particular focus on the world of B2B and B2B commerce, which is what we're going to be sharing a bit with you today. Mo, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Mo here. I'm the, I go by many titles, but for today, I'm going to be the practice lead of engineering at LIVO, and I look after the composable space. I've been with the agency for about, 7 to 8 years now. And I've worked with many retailers on their B2C and B2B businesses as well. So yeah, when you guys reached out with this topic, I was like, yep, this is what we do. It's an awesome opportunity for us to share what we do. And hopefully you guys find some value in this session.
So as Mo mentioned, please use the chat to ask any questions whatsoever throughout. We're happy to stop as we're going and answer any questions in context. Now, I'm not a technologist. Mo is the engineer. I'm the business presenter today, so you're going to get a perspective from both sides of the coin. But what we're going to do is explore how B2B commerce is evolving and how technology is playing a crucial role in this evolution and this transformation. Now, the agenda for this afternoon is we're going to give a quick overview and an introduction to commerce in general. We're not sure where everybody's coming from, so we're going to start right at the very beginning and introduce the concept of commerce. We're going to talk about why you should care about B2B commerce. What does B2B commerce look like? And then we will break down how B2B commerce differs from B2C, and then walk through the buying process and how technology is reshaping the world of commerce. And then finally, we'll wrap up with with a short segment at the end looking at the exciting future of B2B commerce, because there is a lot of innovation and exciting activity happening in this space. But to kick off, an introduction to commerce. Commerce, in its simplest term, is the buying and selling of goods and services. But in the world of B2B, it goes beyond individual purchases. It's all about business transactions, and these business transactions are what fuels the global economy. Now, traditional commerce was done through physical stores, through trade agreements, and through in-person negotiations. The world of digital commerce, or e-commerce, as you might know it as, is now the dominant form of commerce. Now, it allows consumers and businesses to transact online, and we're going to pay particular focus today to the business transactions in a digital domain. Now, there's two types of commerce: B2C, which stands for business to consumer, and B2B, which stands for business to business. Now, B2C on the left-hand side here is all about quick individual purchases. So think about going to JD Sports and buying a pair of Nike sneakers. That's a B2C commerce experience. Now, a B2B commerce experience is more complex. It's multi-layered, and a good way to think about this is JD Sports buying Nike shoes in bulk from Nike as a manufacturer and distributor. And we'll go into a little bit more of what these roles mean in the world of B2B commerce. But as we're going through, think about these two different lenses. So B2C is your traditional retail experience, that is you as an individual buying products. B2B is the business buying products from another business and then potentially on selling that to you as a consumer. So that's the two delineations between B2B and B2C. Mo, anything more you would like to add on that?
No, not really. But I'm like, in short, if you think about it, right, you think about B2C and you go like, this is basically your traditional commerce. It doesn't have to be online. It's basically anything, like you going to a marketplace or like a night market and buying stuff. That is basically a form of B2C, but it's just a B2C that's not happening online. And then you think about your B2B, that is your business to business. So that's basically where your night market stand has went out and gotten their supplies to sell to you. So really, if you think about it, without B2B, B2C wouldn't be a possibility. So yeah.
So the difference between B2B and B2C. Now, in B2B e-commerce, customers visit a website with the goal of completing a task or finding a solution to a problem. Now, unlike in a retail or a B2C commerce experience, shoppers browse. They don't necessarily, or they have specific objectives to achieve. But in a B2C scenario, there is a lot of emotion in the decision-making process because it is an individual making a purchase. However, in a B2B, it is a much more functional purchase. And this makes it crucial for B2B websites to be user-friendly. Now, we speak a lot about utility. And what we mean by utility is putting the features in to make the buyer's life as easy as possible, which is slightly different to when we build a B2C website or a B2C experience. Because yes, we're focusing on utility in a B2C experience, but we're also focusing on emotion, and we want to captivate the user, and we want to drag them in, and we want them to immerse themselves in the experience. That's not necessarily the case in B2B. B2B is about how do we make the life as easy as possible for the buyer to come in, purchase the goods, and leave. So utility is something that we'll be talking about today. Now, as I said, when a business visits a B2B website, they're not browsing. They're looking for solutions to problems. So their objective is clear. They're there to find what they need quickly and efficiently. Now, the easier that you can make it for customers to find what they need, the more likely they are to return in the world of B2B commerce. And if they come back, they're going to spend more money and the cycle continues. So, as I said, B2B commerce, simplicity, efficiency, and making life easy is the core to a B2B commerce experience.
And also,
Now,
maybe
sorry.
maybe it's also worth mentioning as well that when you are serving a B2B customer, normally those customers are visiting your website as part of their jobs. Think of it this way, like maybe it's the business owner trying to source products for their business, or maybe it's the procurement manager, for example, trying to find quotes for different from different suppliers, and then eventually like researching and then making a decision. So normally they are visiting your site as part of their job, whereas your B2C customer is mostly visiting your website as a lifestyle choice. They are either buying things for their home, or they are making an online order for whatever they want. So that's a very important distinction as well.
So we describe B2B commerce as business-to-business transactions. So this is the exchanges between two businesses. Now, when we're talking about B2B commerce today, we're not talking about retail channels, although that is a form of B2B commerce. We're talking about online or digital commerce. So it is business-to-business transactions that happen online. So in using the Nike example, it is a transaction between organizations. So like Nike and JD Sports buying the products from Nike via an online process. So that's the definition of B2B commerce, and that's our definition for tonight. Now, there are some core characteristics of B2B commerce. Business-to-business transactions. So this is a transaction between a manufacturer and a distributor, or a distributor and a commercial organization, but it is business to business. The other characteristic is they are much larger transaction values. Now, if you think as a consumer, when you're making a purchase of typically one product. In a B2B scenario, it could be hundreds or thousands, or in some cases, millions of products that are being purchased in one transaction. So the transaction value is significantly larger. It's significantly more valuable. That's a key differentiator in B2B. Another characteristic is longer sales cycles. Now, B2B commerce typically involves a long sales cycle, typically through a procurement process where you have contract negotiations, you have contract pricing. It is a process that takes some time. It is not as simple as coming in and purchasing a product. So there is a much longer sales cycle involved in B2B commerce. And the fourth characteristic is complex decision-making. In B2B, it is not typically just one buyer. Although in a small business, you might have one buyer, but in a larger organization, you have multiple buyers. You have multiple stakeholders that are involved in that buying process and in that negotiation and that commercial process. So it is far more complicated to purchase in a B2B scenario. There's also many faces of B2B, and I've touched on a little bit of this already, in that you've got brand to retailer, so Nike to JD Sports. You've got brand to marketplace, so Nike to an online marketplace. Now, that could be Amazon, it could be eBay. You've got manufacturer to distributor. So this could be Nike as the manufacturer of the shoes, selling to a distributor who is going to distribute that product to other businesses within a region. You've got distributor to distributor, and that could be a bigger distributor selling to a smaller distributor. It could be a distributor to a company or a distributor to a marketplace. Now, I'm going to go into a bit more of a glossary on these different roles and these different terms, but I think the key point we're trying to make on this slide is that there are many different faces and many different relationships in a B2B transaction, which makes B2B significantly more complicated than a B2C environment. Now, why should you care about B2B commerce? Now, B2B, as Mo mentioned, drives B2C experiences and B2B purchases. B2B drives the global economy. Everything that you purchase as a consumer has probably started its journey as part of a B2B transaction. Now, B2B commerce powers the entire global supply chain. So before a consumer can buy a product, there are multiple B2B transactions that are typically already taken place. Now, as an example, the shoe company, so Nike, might purchase raw materials as part of a B2B transaction. So they're purchasing leather, they're purchasing rubber, and then they're manufacturing that. Now they might sell those shoes to a distributor or a retailer, and then the retailer sells those shoes to an end consumer. So you think about the number of times that product changes hands before it ends up in a consumer's hands. That is the complexity of the B2B commerce world and that B2B sales life cycle. So without B2B, consumer goods wouldn't reach our stores or our shelves or our market stands. So it is pivotal to global supply chain. The other point is B2B is a huge industry. So in 2019, the market size of B2B was 12.2 trillion. This is US dollars, isn't it, Mo?
Yep.
Yep. So 12.2 trillion US dollars. And 4 years later, it had grown to 15.3 trillion US dollars. So 25.4% growth over a 4-year period. And it's not slowing down. Like, it is a huge industry, and there is huge volumes of sales going through the B2B commerce industry. Now, a quick pop quiz, and put your answers in the chat and we'll have a look at it. Of the 15.3 million, or of the 15.3 trillion, I should say, how much do you think the United States contributed?
We'll give you 30 seconds to drop in your answers. It's just a guess. Don't worry. There is no right or wrong. Just, yep. Keep them coming. Try to give us the number in $1 trillion. Like, what do you think? Was it 1 trillion, 2 trillions, 3 trillions? What do you think?
So we've got 30%, which is, what's that? My maths, 4.5 trillion. We've got 50%, which is 7.5 trillion, and we've got 3 trillion. Okay. Yep. So the US contribution was in fact 2.3 trillion. So not as high as you think it is. How much do you think, so Indonesia as part of the APAC region, how much do you think the APAC region contributed now? Yeah, well done, Mercy. 2 trillion, yeah. Close. How about APAC? 5 trillion for APAC? Yep. Any other takers?
Any more? Going once, going twice.
The value is 9 trillion. So
again, Mercy, you are very close as well.
Very close.
And Novantiri as well. Well done.
Yeah. 9 trillion is what the APAC region contributed of that total B2B market size. So the point we're making here is that it is a huge business, and we all live in a part of the world where B2B commerce is an enormous contributor. So the APAC region is the most significant contributor to the B2B commerce market size. So there's so much opportunity that exists out there in the world of B2B, and we're fortunate enough to be living in a location where we are a major contributor. Now, in B2B, relationships are everything. So historically, B2B transactions were completed between individuals, and these were more often face-to-face. But they're increasingly being powered by technology, and that makes communication more efficient, it makes the transactions more transparent. But even as we shift to digital forms of commerce, individual relationships are still really important in B2B. And that's why you will hear of platforms like CRM or client relationship management systems still being pivotal in a B2B relationship. And this is where technology plays a role. The other point is that B2B isn't just about transactions. It's about leveraging technology to improve efficiency and communication across supply chains and relationship management. And some of the most exciting technology that we're seeing at the moment is being driven by the B2B commerce supply chain. We've got robots in warehouses, we've got IoT devices and AI tool chains that are powering the B2B commerce economy. And these are just some of the innovations that we're seeing across the sector. So there is lots of innovation and technological advancements in B2B commerce, which also makes it a really exciting sector. So not only is it significant and it is a massive contributor to economies, it is being underpinned by some really exciting technology, which makes it a really interesting industry to be part of. Mo, anything else you would like to add there before we move on?
I think you've covered it all.
Cool. Yeah. So B2B commerce involves many different players. It involves manufacturers. So in this example, Nike. It involves a distributor. So this is the intermediary that will purchase products from the manufacturer and then sell them to other businesses. So this might be the middle person between Nike and, say, JD Sports as a commercial business. So you have many different roles in the B2B e-commerce life cycle, but three main roles to think about is manufacturer, distributor, and commercial business. Now, the B2B transaction flow looks something like this. So the manufacturer is the company that produces the goods or products that are sold to other businesses for further distribution. You have the distributor, which purchases products from the manufacturers and then sells them to other businesses. So the distributor, their role and the value they add to the supply chain is about inventory management and logistics. And then you've got the commercial business. So these businesses might be purchasing products from distributors or manufacturers, and they might just be on-selling them to the customer, or they might actually purchase those products and then incorporate them into products of their own before they then on-sell them to the customer. And then you've got the end customer, which are yourselves. They're the final consumers who ultimately use the product and typically purchase through retail or online channels, and typically from commercial businesses. So that is your typical transaction flow: manufacturer, distributor, commercial business, and then into your end customer's hands. So there's multiple actors involved throughout that life cycle. Now, B2B can get really complicated because there are many different layers to a B2B relationship. And the reason why we're stepping through this is because this will help you understand the complexity of the technical environment as well when you see how complex the B2B sales environment is. You've got a manufacturer, you might have a representative firm, and this is like a sales and marketing firm that goes out and promotes the products on behalf of the manufacturer. You've then got a master distributor, which could be the parent distributor that then distributes to other distributors, or you could just have a distributor that sells to commercial businesses. And then you've got layers of commercial businesses as well, potentially before it gets to the end customer. So again, very complex supply chain and a complex environment where there's different parties involved throughout, and that adds to the complexity. Now, when you're managing inventory in the world of B2B, there is further complexity again. You've got the manufacturer, the inventory that they manage might be the raw materials. So in the example of Nike, that could be leather, it could be rubber, it could be materials, it could be glues. These are the raw materials that go into those products. So a manufacturer might be managing inventory via a program called an ERP, and they will be managing the parts of the shoe prior to it becoming a shoe. You've then got your master distributor or your distributor, and they're going to handle bulk quantities of that. So they'll be buying in the hundreds or the thousands of products. So they're buying those products and then making them available and then being able to distribute and handle the logistics to pass them on to a commercial business. The commercial business will sell the product to customers, or the commercial business could also use that product in a component of their own. So this could be a business that is adding extra value to those products before they pass them on. You've then got the commercial business and then through to the customer. So if you see the little images at the top, like the concept here is you've got a Lego piece that a manufacturer creates. The commercial business might add extra Lego pieces to that. And then the second commercial business might turn that into a product. So it starts to build as the supply chain goes on, and then the consumer buys the finished product. So this adds complexity to the B2B life cycle, because you've got different types of industry and you've got different inventory and you've got different types of products as well that businesses need to track. And the underlying technology that supports this needs to be able to track and monitor all of these different types of inventory, like the concept of an individual product, or what we speak about is bill of materials, which is the sum of many products, which creates a product. So in the scenario here, we're looking at a bunch of flowers. The material might be the individual flowers. So it's 6 white roses, 2 pink roses. The bill of materials is the sum of all of that. And then the product is a bouquet. So you can see how that starts to be assembled. And this is part of the B2B life cycle that is significantly more complex than B2C. Mo, anything you want to add around inventory management?
Not really, but I think it'll be good if we can maybe take 5 minutes to see if anyone has any questions. We've covered quite a bit now. So we've covered the introduction with the differences between B2B and B2C. We've talked about the inventory management. We've talked about the life cycle of a product from being a material all the way until it's packaged and sold as a product to an end consumer. So does anyone have any questions on that so far before we dive deeper? Because we still have quite a bit of a technical stuff to go through as well.
Excuse me, I have one question.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes. My name is Rizky from Informasi Sistem. I have a question about transfer technology from a company. The question is, what the benefit from the main company to transfer technology to other companies? For example, from Australia company transfer technology to Indonesia. What's the benefit from Australian company? Thank you.
Yeah, so just replaying that question. So the question was the benefit of transport from Australia to, say, Indonesia, was it?
No, well, about transfer technology from this from one company, for example, to company from Australia and Indonesia. I have some agreement to transfer technology, and then Australia teach the technology which Australian have and transfer to Indonesian, and Indonesia learn that technology, and then what's the benefit from the Australian company have if they transfer their technology to Indonesia?
Okay. So if Australian company is transporting their technology into Indonesia, what's the benefit? Yes. Yeah. I think what we typically see with the different types of technology used in the world of B2B commerce is that a lot of them are international products. So they're products that are used all over the world, not necessarily just Australia or Indonesia. Like the biggest companies in the world of B2B commerce are companies like SAP, if you're familiar with SAP. So SAP is ERP, CRM, financial organization. So many organizations use products from SAP. Companies like Salesforce, which you might be familiar with, or even Microsoft. So these are sort of the big logos or the big brands that sit behind a lot of the B2B commerce supply chain. There are other smaller companies. So there are smaller companies in Australia, smaller companies in Indonesia, smaller companies in Singapore who are producing technologies that support the B2B supply chain. And sometimes those technologies are built to support individual markets. Now, Indonesia might have a certain requirement for technology that Australia may not have. Australia may have requirements for technology that Indonesia and Singapore doesn't have. So there's no one size fits all, if that makes sense, in that depending on the industry and depending on the use case, you might need specialized technology or you may not need specialized technology. So what we see is in the world of industrial manufacturing, there'll be certain products that are specific to those industries. Or in grocery or retail, you might have products that are specific to those industries. I think we see industry-specific products more than region-specific products, if that makes sense. So you'll typically find products that are suited to industries more than individual locations.
Okay, thank you.
So we spoke at the start about the difference between B2B and B2C. But the key difference, as we've said, is the buying journey in B2B is significantly more complex than B2C. It needs steps like verification. It needs steps that involve vendor selection. There's post-purchase monitoring, and technology really underpins all of this. So technologies like ERPs and CRMs are critical to the B2B supply chain. Now, the way that B2B procurement typically works is that a business identifies a need. So we'll continue to use Nike as an example. So Nike identifies a need to buy leather materials to create a new shoe or plastic materials to create a new shoe. What they'll then do is they will go to market and find a vendor that has the ability to supply those materials for that product. So they'll go out and go to market to select a vendor. So during this stage, the business is going to gather information. It's going to evaluate the different solutions, and it's going to compare the different options from different suppliers. Now, there's going to be many vendors that can provide those goods or services back to that company. As part of the vendor selection process, the organization will look at the price, they will look at the quality, they'll look at the quality assurance processes, they'll look at the business viability of that organization. Once they're happy with a vendor, they will then typically go through a down selection and negotiation process. At this point, it is a negotiation over price. So this is where you barter over the commercial terms. So you'll negotiate that price and then you will onboard that vendor. And at that point, that's typically when you start to connect in the world of technology, in the world of kind of B2B commerce technology. This is where you'll start to potentially build integrations between systems. You'll start to connect that and start to create those technical relationships amongst those suppliers. And then you go through post-purchase monitoring, which is the ongoing stage. Now, in B2B, it's not typically a one-off transaction. It is regular recurrent transactions because, as I said, it's high volume earlier and constant transactions. So Nike is always buying leather for their shoes, or they're always buying plastic or rubber for their shoes. So that post-purchase monitoring is making sure that those continued purchases are being reviewed and monitored, and that everything is meeting the expectations of the organization. Now, throughout this sales process, there are key roles. The first is the procurement team. Now, in the world of B2B, a procurement team will go to market and they will arrange the contract and they will buy and sign agreements with suppliers. You will have finance officers or financial officers who will be involved in the decision-making process. They're the ones that are looking at the budget and the pricing and making sure that the organization is getting value. And then you've got the end users, and these are the people that could be using the products, or these are the people that could be purchasing the products on a day-to-day basis after the master contract has been put in place. So there are three key actors across the B2B lifecycle that need to be considered. Now, in B2B, it is not as simple as I said at the start, we're not trying to sell to one person. So it is not just Mo buying a product. In order to be able to buy, you need these three actors to come together. So it's not good enough to just have the best product. In the world of B2B, you need to make sure that your product is good, your price is good, and your service is good. And that way you meet the need of the procurement officer, the finance officer, and the end user. And this makes the sales process far more complicated because you've got these competing agendas, because finance officer is looking for a good value, procurement officer is looking for a good contract, and the end user is looking for a good quality product that they can use. So it is a complicated process in the buying phase from a B2B perspective. Now, there's a number of financial and payment tools that are pretty standard across the B2B lifecycle. Now, credit terms are something that are very standard in a B2B organization. So credit terms refer to negotiating terms that align with the cash flow of the businesses. So it might be that I'm going to purchase products from Mo, but Mo says that I don't have to pay him for those products until 30 days after I've made those purchases. Now, credit terms sort of underwrite the entire B2B commerce economy, and it's something that is core to B2B relationships. The other concept is invoicing and invoices. So invoices and payment process systems streamline the payment process. In B2B, you'll have a lot of automated invoicing. You'll have electronic payments, and this helps to speed up the transactions and be able to minimize the amount of human intervention in between these processes. You've got other tools as well throughout the purchasing process, like a request for quote. And then this is where a business or a commercial business will reach out to a supplier or a distributor and ask for a quote. Say, I need 1,000 pairs of Nike shoes. And Nike will come back with a quote. So that's what the request for quote is. You've then got a purchase order, and a purchase order is another purchasing device, which is effectively an intent to pay. So it's a document that the business will issue to the seller. So the buyer will send this to the seller, and it details the products that you want to buy, the quantity, the price, the delivery date, the payment terms, and it really sets expectations for the sale. So these are common concepts that you will see in B2B, and B2B technologies and B2B systems typically need to support these. So a quote process is very common in B2B commerce platforms. A purchase order is very common to reconcile against the order in the world of B2B.
And if you remember when we started the presentation, we talked about how B2B customers, one of the most important things to them is utilities. So if you think about utilities, just tying back to that concept of utilities, these are the utilities we talk about. A B2B customer, when they log into your website or to your e-commerce website, they're not looking for a very fancy website. They are not looking for jumping banners and animations and stuff like that. They are looking for functionality. They want to be able to request for a code. They want to be able to make a purchase order. So these are the utilities that they are looking for. And if they can't find that technology or these utilities in your B2B e-commerce website, then they are going to go to somebody else.
Yeah, good point, Mo. Like B2B is all about making life easy for the buyer. So we've got a question. So what are the key strategies for businesses to effectively penetrate the B2B market, especially for the Indonesian market, where it's shifting rapidly? Sometimes here it is pretty much random because of a trend on social media like TikTok. Yeah. I think from a B2B market penetration perspective, like as Mo mentioned, it is about, well, first and foremost, it's about product inventory and distribution. So if we go back to the roles that we saw in B2B, you have a B2B in the life cycle. You've got a distributor. You need to have the product and you need to have the inventory. Now, in the world of B2B also, as Mo mentioned, you need utility through that buying process. So it's about having the products and making it easy for people to buy. Like that is I guess, a core strategy for entering the B2B market there. There's another question in terms of certain industries that are quicker to adopt to changes in B2B commerce compared to others. This is a really good question. In B2B has typically been slower to adopt technology than B2C in many instances, particularly from a B2B commerce perspective. Now, if you think about even your own buying behavior, you're probably buying products online for a long time now. There are still businesses out there that buy and sell products using pen and paper. And we come across this all of the time. And these are businesses that are turning over tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, but they are still working on pen and paper. So B2B has been slow to adopt technology, but we'll go to our provocation and our prediction at the end. But it is changing. B2B businesses are adopting e-commerce technology and they're shifting that buyer behavior to digital mediums away from that human-to-human interaction at a very rapid pace at the moment. How is a transaction with a one-time customer within B2B commerce handled due to the long term? So within the world of B2B, there are you can still purchase for what is effectively call it cash on delivery. So you can still go and place a one-off purchase. Like in the world of B2B commerce, we'll typically call that a guest checkout. And that works very similar to as it would on any normal e-commerce site. But that is the way that you would handle a one-off purchase. Now, in a one-off purchase as well, you wouldn't necessarily have things like what we were speaking about just before, credit terms. So a one-off purchase won't have credit terms. You'll have to pay for the product at the point of checkout. Whereas if you negotiate a price and you go through that negotiation buying process, you'll be able to check out without putting payment in at the point of checkout. So you'll pay on account. The other things that you won't typically get for a one-time purchase is contract pricing. So in B2B, more often than not, there is contract pricing. So that is a negotiated price for the products that the buyer will negotiate with the seller, and that guarantees that price for a period of time. So one-off purchase, you won't have that. But yeah, good questions. So some other nuances to B2B, and I just touched on this, the concept of custom catalogs. So because B2B is so much more complicated, and if you think of like organization, like particularly large organizations, they've got many different people that do many different jobs. Now, Mo might work in the print room, and Mo's job requires him to reorder paper and ink and print materials. Now, a custom catalog might be a catalog that is specifically set up for Mo to be able to go in and purchase his printing products. But Mo may not be allowed to purchase laptops or other devices because Mo's role is just to purchase printing products. So this is another mechanism within the world of B2B commerce that is used quite frequently to allow many different people within the organization to purchase different products, but be able to control what they can purchase based on their role within the organization. And we call these custom catalogs. Another tool is, and I've touched on this, is the concept of those negotiated price lists. So because Mo orders 10,000 reams of paper every month, Mo has buying power, so that can therefore negotiate a better price. Now, when Mo logs into an e-commerce platform, he'll see his negotiated pricing if he's a repeat customer and he's gone through that buying cycle. Now, the question that Rayan, I don't know whether I pronounced the name right, but asked in terms of those one-time customers, the one-time customer is a customer that wouldn't have that negotiated pricing. It's a one-off purchase, so you'll typically purchase at the recommended retail price or the recommended wholesale price. It is the list price. You don't get the discounts because you're a one-off customer. So negotiated prices are very common in the world of B2B. And then that adds extra complexity from a commerce perspective, because the commerce platform has to hold many different price lists. So if you think of a large organization that might be selling to thousands of customers, every customer could have different pricing. And this is one of the complexities when you're building a B2B e-commerce site, is managing all of these different prices for all of these different customers, because it is not unusual for a customer to have individual contracted pricing. So these are two nuances in the buying and selling of goods. One being the custom catalogs, so your custom products, and two being your negotiated price lists. Now,
just to give you some, and also just to add to that as well, for the negotiated price lists, some of the e-commerce platforms we work with, and this is just to give you a perspective on the scale of this whole negotiated prices. Like one of the platforms we work with, they allow one specific line item or a SKU number to have up to 50,000 prices. So just imagine that, and then multiply that by how many number of SKUs a manufacturer or a supplier might have.
So we have customers that work in the industrial manufacturing industry, and it is not uncommon for organizations like that to have millions, if not tens of millions of individual SKUs. Now, a SKU is a product variant. So if you think of the complexity that you're dealing with there in terms of tens of millions of SKUs, and then up to 50,000 individual customer prices, that is a huge amount of data. And this is another reason why B2B commerce is so much more complicated than B2C, is because the complexity of the number of SKUs and then the number of individual prices makes it, as I said, significantly more complicated as an industry.
We have a question, Cale. Somebody has their hands up. And Datia, was it?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is Andar. I have a question. Let's say I have a successful small B2C business. Is it worth it to move to B2B? If yes, what are the benefits? Or should I just stay with what is working right now? Thank you.
Yeah, I think like negotiating B2B pricing typically comes with scale and volume, and Datia. So it depends on how much you are purchasing and how frequently you're purchasing, which typically determines whether somebody is going to move from acting like a B2C customer. So if you're only purchasing occasionally, you might be acting more like a B2C customer in that you're coming in, you're just doing a transaction, you're moving on. A B2B customer might be a recurring transaction, it might be frequent transactions. Where you'll typically see somebody moving from acting like a B2B and B2C to a B2B are things like, I want credit terms. So as a small business, you might use credit terms as a way to manage your cash flow, because you can purchase the goods, you don't have to pay for them for 30 days time. So that's where you'll typically see people applying for B2B accounts in a B2B commerce site, is to be able to manage cash flow to make sure that they don't have to outlay the money at the point of purchase. So that is pretty standard. The other reason would be around those negotiated prices. So by negotiating formal agreements, then you're able to have typically more cost-effective purchasing, because you're in some cases making a commitment to purchases. So you're able to negotiate better pricing than if you're just I'll come and purchase occasionally with no pattern of behavior.
And there, I also have a follow-up question for you as well. When you said you wanted to go from B2C to B2B, did you mean that you actually wanted to purchase supplies for your system as a B2B customer, or did you want to become a B2B seller?
Okay. In this case, I want to be a B2B seller. I think I want to maybe try to scale up from B2C and see what is it more benefit or not for my business.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that would also depend a lot on your operation as well, right? Somebody, for example, who's a home baker, baking goods in their home kitchen and selling, I don't know, 100 muffins a day, that wouldn't make sense for them to become a B2B supplier or a seller, because they don't have the volume or the capacity to actually venture into that kind of thing. So I guess it's all down to what you can basically work with. If you are basically just sourcing stuff from somebody and selling it, maybe you have that kind of wiggle room, like you can actually start looking into becoming a distributor rather than just being a business selling to end users. Or you could actually be both. So you could potentially be somebody who's the distributor and a seller at the same time. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
So the buying process in B2B looks something like this. You have a buyer. The buyer might be purchasing from an approved catalog. So this was the scenario we spoke about just before with Mo working in the print room. Mo can purchase print products from an approved catalog. You've then got the order or the purchase order. So this is where you place the order and then guarantee that with a purchase order. You then typically have an invoice and a payment. So that feels like a fairly simple and linear process. The challenge with B2B is it can get far more complicated than this, because there could be multiple buyers within the organization. So I might be a buyer, Mo might be a buyer. There could be hundreds of other buyers within the organization. And in the world of B2B, you need to think about who has the permissions to buy, who needs to approve the purchases. So there's a lot more complication here in terms of that. With all of the buyers as well, they might need to have their own custom catalogs. So Mo's got his print catalog. I might be working in the maintenance room. So therefore, my products are going to be very different to Mo's products. So you can see that how you start to end up with these different catalogs. You've then got orders and orders approvals. So it's very common in the world of B2B to put order approvals in place. So that could be that I trust Mo making a purchase up to $1,000 because that's the budget that he's allowed to operate within. As soon as it goes over $1,000, Mo's purchase might have to get sent to me, and then I have to approve his purchase before that can be released within the system. So this is where commerce in a B2B sense requires a lot more features than it does in a B2C. If you're going in to buy a pair of shoes as a consumer, you go in, you add the product to your cart, you check out, you pay. It's a relatively simple process. In the world of B2B, you go in, you log in. Depending on your login, you might see different products because of the role within your organization. you're going to see different pricing. You then add those products to the cart and you might have volume discounts. So if Mo buys 1,000 reams of paper, then he gets a discount. Mo's order might need to be carted for approval because Mo has exceeded $1,000. Then when Mo places the order, he doesn't pay because he might have credit terms previously, and he might only be asked to put a purchase order number in or upload a purchase order as part of the purchase. So you can see how there are so many extra steps in a B2B commerce process than there are in B2C. And this is where the complexity exists within there, because big organizations and businesses are complex. There is a lot more people, there is approvals, you've got the boss, you've got the manager, you've got the worker. All of that needs to get mapped into a B2B commerce product in order for it to be able to fulfill those needs. Now, as you can see, the buying process can get complicated, and this is just a really simple, like a simple complicated example. It can get even more complicated than this again. So it is a very complex process with lots of rules in place as part of the buying process. But B2B also has an advantage over B2C in that it is somewhat predictable. You have contracted pricing, so you know what your pricing is going to be, and you might contract that for 2 years or 3 years or whatever the term is. So you have predictability over what that price is. You have predictability about the order volumes and the order discounts. You have predictability about the rules and the permissions. So there's a lot of governance and controls that are in place within a B2B product, which creates a lot of opportunity that is not available in the world of B2C. So one of the provocations or the questions for you to have a think about is, what if the buyer in this journey back here is not human? And we'll kind of go into this a little bit more, but just think about that for a second. Like, what if it wasn't Mo placing the order? What if it was something else? Now, because of all this complexity, technology plays an enormous role in the world of B2B commerce. And there is lots of different technology solutions that underpin this B2B commerce supply chain. So we're going to introduce a couple of these now so that you get familiar with them. But as you've seen, it's complex, and technology helps to make complex simple. So technology plays a really critical role in the modern B2B buying process. It underpins the entire B2B e-commerce supply chain. And there are common technologies that you'll typically see in most B2B commerce journeys. The first one being the e-commerce platform. Now, standard e-commerce platforms in the world of B2B include companies like SAP, Salesforce, Commerce Tools, Shopify, Adobe, which used to be called Magento. These are brand names or names of platforms that you'll typically see powering most of the B2B commerce experiences around the world. Oracle, so big multinational. So to the question before, these are all typically big multinational players that operate across many different countries. There are sometimes specific platforms that might be very specific to the manufacturing or the grocery or the healthcare industry. But more often than not, you'll see names like SAP, Salesforce, Oracle, Commerce Tools, Shopify. Anything else you want to add on commerce platforms, Mo?
No, not really. You keep going.
The commerce platform does things like your search, like your listing page. So where you see your product catalog, it surfaces the product on the product page. The concept of a cart. So when you add an item to your cart, that is the commerce platform that is doing that. When you process the order, that is the commerce platform that is doing that as well. You've also got another technology called a PIM. Now, PIM stands for Product Information Management System. And a PIM's role in the world of B2B commerce is to manage your product data. And we just mentioned before that, like, you can have lots and lots of products in the world of B2B commerce. So think if you had 10 million products that you had to manage. And when we're talking about managing in a website or an e-commerce website, you've typically got a name, you have an image, you have pricing, you have a product description, you might have specifications. How wide is it? How tall is it? How much does it weigh? What color is it? All of these have to be managed to be able to present it on the web, be presented on a website for a B2B customer to buy. And if you think about managing 10 million products, that becomes too complicated to do. So the role of a PIM in the world of B2B e-commerce is to help you manage your products simply. So it allows you to bulk change. So be able to bulk change images, bulk change descriptions. So a PIM's there to make the life easier of a merchandiser or the person that is actually managing the e-commerce website.
Yep. And to add to that as well, your PIM systems also act as the source of truth for your products as well. Think if you have a website and you have a mobile application and you have some other sales channels as well. All of them will be ingesting products from your PIM system. Whereas if you don't have a PIM system, you will be managing your products in multiple places, which could potentially lead to an error. Like you would have, say, different descriptions or a different wrong color on one platform, but it's correct on the other platform. So a PIM usually serves as the source of truth. Like it's the central location where you keep all your product data as well.
You've also got a search technology. So I'm sure everybody's been on an e-commerce website. You've got your search bar at the top. So there is search platforms that are specific platforms that provide a search engine-like experience within an e-commerce product. So search is another key aspect of B2B, and especially when you're dealing with millions or tens of millions of products, you need search to be able to find what you're looking for because you can't browse through and look at all of those products. The other nuance in the world of B2B is customers might know the product based on an ID. So it's not necessarily the name of the product. They might be searching on some numbers or some letters, which is like the product code, because that is what they know of it as. So search in B2B also becomes a little bit more complicated in that people can be searching for different things, but they mean the same. So search is very important in the world of B2B. You
also add to search as well. Sorry, Cale.
Yep.
We've also starting to see a bit of a shift in how people search. People also sometimes don't search by a product code, although in B2B, that's pretty much what they search for most of the time. But you also get some random searches, like people would search for a very long thing. Like, for example, instead of searching for a flask for that can keep your tea hot, they would actually write something to keep my tea hot. People would start writing very long keywords in the search boxes, and that's where you have to start tapping into AI and search to try to understand and make sense of what the user is actually searching for.
So the fourth technology is ERP. Now, ERP is the heart and soul of almost every B2B organization. So your ERP is where you manage your inventory, where you manage your finances, where you manage your costs. It is the system that looks after most of your organization. Now, commerce platforms will integrate with ERP because ERP is more often than not the source of truth for your inventory, for your pricing, and for your customer data within an organization. So whenever we're building an e-commerce platform in the world of B2B, the ERP integration is the single most important integration within that solution. You've got another piece of technology called an OMS, or an order management system. Now, this is often used, but not always used. So an order management system aggregates the orders that come through and allows the business to track and manage those customer orders across different sales channels. So this could be orders that are coming direct from the ERP. It could be orders that are coming from a website. It could be orders that are still coming from sales reps that are manually entering orders into a system. What it does is it aggregates all of that and manages those orders so they can mark those orders as picked, packed, shipped, complete. So the order management system is the orchestration of your orders within the organization. You've got the concept of punch out. So punch out is a technology that allows buyers to purchase products from within their own internal systems. So companies that have an ERP might have punch out integrated to it. So they can go in and raise a purchase order and pick the product and not leave their own system. Punch out is typically most found in manufacturing and industrial mode. But not so often in other industries. Yep. You've got EDI, or electronic data interchange, which is effectively a way of systems talking to systems. And you'll often see this within industries. So different industries will have industry standards in the way that they transfer data back and forth. And the EDI will define a schema that is sort of a universally accepted schema within the industry. And if my system is talking to Mo's system, the EDI format will tell us how I have to pass the data to Mo, and then equally how Mo has to pass the data back to me. So system-to-system connections are very common in the world of B2B. And then the last one is CMS, so content management system. So this is where when you look at a B2B website, you've got your carousels, you've got images, you've got videos, you've got different parts of the site. These are typically managed by a content management system. So as you can see, there are lots of different technologies that make B2B commerce possible. It is not just one piece of technology. There are lots of different technologies that have to work together in order to be able to enable a transaction to be received, to be processed, and for those goods to be shipped to the customer.
We have one question from Mercy. Which technology mentioned is the most important in the B2B purchasing process, or are they all equally important?
ERP, for me, is the most important for a B2B organization. Like ERP is the heart and soul of a business. It tracks your inventory. It is where you hold your pricing. It is typically where a lot of your financial reconciliation is done. So ERP is probably the most important from a business operations. But if I rephrase that question, Mercy, and go, what is the most important technology for B2B commerce in a digital sense? It's your e-commerce platform, because that is the heart and soul that takes the order, and it will pass that order through to your ERP platform.
There's also another question, but I think we have a whole section dedicated to that. What new technologies do you think hold the most promise for supporting B2B buyers in the future? So I think hold on to that, Diane. We will come back to that in a minute.
So these are the technologies. Now, this complicated diagram Mo can walk through, but this is how all of these technologies integrate and talk to one another to be able to deliver a B2B commerce experience.
Yep. I'll make it very short because I'm not sure how many of you are technical or have done more technical work, but in general, this is what your typical B2B commerce ecosystem looks like. At the heart of the system, you have your e-commerce or commerce platform, and then everything else basically interacts with that. So if you look downwards, you will have all your integration platforms where you are integrating with your ERP systems, you're integrating with your PIM data. Your PIM data is feeding into your commerce and basically putting all your products in there. You have your CRM, etc., etc. Now, if you move upwards from your commerce system, you will then start to see that you have some middle layers that we sometimes in the world of development call backend for front end, or we call it BFF layers. Now, your BFF layers basically aggregate your data from multiple sources and then present that to your end systems. Think if you have a mobile application, if you have a website, even if you have an IoT device, all of these will be consuming data and using that BFF layer. So as a whole, this whole system would work together and it is pretty similar between B2B and B2C, really. The complexity most likely is in the downwards systems that is connecting to your integration platforms, and also in your BFF layer. That is the layer that has all your business logic. So aside from that, they are pretty much alike. I'll keep it there, but if you have any more questions on that, please feel free to post them in the chat as well.
Yeah, pop any questions in the chat. But I think, as you can see in this diagram, there's lots of moving parts within the world of e-commerce, and there are lots of different systems that need to work together in order to be able to capture, facilitate, process that transaction. Now, what we've gone through so far is you've got an overview of commerce, the difference between B2B and B2C. We've taken you through the different roles in that B2B process, how B2B sales happen, how you get contracted pricing, how you negotiate those prices, how you get payment terms or credit terms that allow you to make a purchase without actually handing over money at the point of purchase. How you can put controls and restrictions around who can purchase what products are what products you're allowed to purchase, approval rules, etc. So you can start to see how all of that comes together, and then the e-commerce platform is the system, or that e-commerce ecosystem that we just saw. They all work together to enforce those rules and help that entire process happen. Now,
if you think about that as well, think about the complexity involved in developing that logic into code as well. If we've talked about all these approval flows, we've talked about the whole journey, we've talked about how each business have their own set of business rules as well. All of that, your system that you are building for a B2B end customer, it needs to support all that business logic. And all that is custom code that needs to be written. So think about all that complexity, and that would also, I guess, give you some perspective on why B2B development or e-commerce is pretty complex.
So, what does the future hold for B2B? Now that you understand what B2B is, the technology that brings it to life, I'm going to introduce a couple of new concepts, and then we'll talk to what we think is the most exciting technology on the horizon. Now, e-commerce has evolved from a single channel, a person shopping from a store, to a person might be shopping in-store, might be shopping on a laptop, might be shopping on a mobile application. That's multi-channel commerce. You've then got cross-channel commerce, and this is, I could be shopping at any one of these channels, and when I go in store, they know me as Cale. When I go online, they know me as Cale. When I log into the app, they know me as Cale. And this is cross-channel because everything is connected. And then you've got what you may have heard of is omni-channel commerce, which is, as a customer in a B2B setting, I can purchase on any channel and I will get a similar experience, and my contract pricing will be available, my catalog will be available. It doesn't matter the channel, I can get the same experience. So I could call Mo in the contact center and he could place the order for me. I could log on to my app, I could log on to the website, I could purchase via a sales rep. That is the concept of omni-channel experience. So we are, in many instances in B2B, probably still somewhere between the multi-channel and cross-channel, because B2B adoption has not been as great as B2C. There are some B2B organizations that are brilliant at this and do offer omni-channel experiences, but it has been slower for B2B organizations to move to that position. And as you can see, all the complexity that sits behind the scenes, it is that little bit harder for B2B organizations to move into a purely omni-channel world. But as these organizations do move into this omni-channel world and they get their ecosystem right, that unlocks a huge range of opportunities for organizations. Now, B2B buyers are using more channels and more screens than ever before. And this is a report from McKinsey from 2023. So back in 2016, there were 5 channels that were typically used, which was email, in-person, phone, a website, or an e-procurement portal. Which e-procurement portal, think of as uploading a purchase order. 2019, you had 7.5 channels. So mobile app become more prevalent, and then trade shows. Then in 2021, we had 10 channels, where you had Google, you had web chat, you had video conferencing as well. So the number of channels that a B2B business needs to support for their buyers is increasing, going from 5 to 10 in a period of 5 years, which aligns to the previous slide where we're looking at the omni-channel experience and all those different channels that B2B businesses were supporting. But our prediction is that the future of commerce is going to happen without humans. And we're getting very close to that point. And the reason why this is more possible in the world of B2B than B2C is because of that long, complicated sales process. That long, complicated sales process gives you certainty over price because you have contract pricing. It gives you certainty over products and catalogs because you're not making a decision based on emotion. As we said earlier, it is purely on utility. I have run out of paper for my printer. I need to buy more paper. There's not many decisions that have to be made in that process because the decisions have been made previously as part of the contracting in that sales negotiation. So Mo just goes in and orders paper. He doesn't need to think about it. He's after utility. So what we are suggesting, and our provocation, is that in the future, Mo is likely not required in that journey. So our prediction, and there was a question there in terms of what is the most, let me go back. What new technologies do you think hold the most promise for supporting B2B buyers in the future? I think it's AI agents. So the concept of a-commerce or agentic commerce is effectively AI agents making these purchases on either our behalf or a business's behalf. And as I said, the reason why this is more possible in the world of B2B is because there is no emotion involved. It is a very utilitarian purpose, and you know what you are looking for. So there is no reason why a bot or an agent cannot be trained to do that process. So our prediction is that you will have, rather than, if we go back here, you'll see omni-channel is a human still at the center of all these interactions. So whilst we have got to the point where we have given humans more options in the channels through which they can purchase, humans are still at the center. What our prediction is, in the not too distant future, humans will no longer be at the center in the world of B2B. We will have AI agents or bots at the center, and they will be the ones that will be placing the orders on our behalf. Now, because we were talking about order approval rules and access roles and restrictions, you still may need a human involved in this at some points, although a lot of transactions will happen without a human. When a human is involved, the human is a supervisor of the AI agents. The human is not the one doing the job. So the prediction that we're saying is that as we move into this world of e-commerce, agents will take over most of the buying and humans will supervise the agents in doing that, in making sure that the checks and balances are there and that the orders are compliant and within the business rules. But the actual physical job of going and placing an order will be shifted across to an AI agent. And why are we predicting this? If you have a look at the investment over particularly the last 12 to 24 months, like venture capital, private equity firms are pouring a huge amount of money into startups and technologies that are developing AI tools and AI agents. It is the new gold rush for investment. There is predicted to be $45 billion worth of growth over the next 5 years in the AI agents market. So it's huge and it's evolving incredibly rapidly. And the other reason is that the technology actually is available today. Like, yes, there are a lot of B2B organizations that haven't got to the point of omni-channel commerce yet, and that does make it harder for them, but the technology exists. We have IoT sensors that can detect whether we're out of paper and then automatically reorder on our behalf. That's possible. That the technology is there today to make that possible. The biggest barrier to this, to moving in this direction in many instances with organizations, is legacy systems or humans getting in the way. Like, human change is significantly harder than technological change. So that is a big barrier at the moment, but the technology is there to support this today. The other reason why this is possible is, as we've said, B2B purchases are rational. They don't involve emotion. They are purely functional. I'm coming to buy paper. Here is the paper that I need. The other point, I've touched on this, is pricing is contracted. It's predictable. The business already knows how much the paper is going to cost, so they can allow an agent to be able to buy that on their behalf. And then the final one is, in the world of B2B, the margins are slim and it is a volume play. You have higher value transactions, higher volume transactions. The margins are typically smaller than in the B2C environment. And when you are dealing with slimmer margins, process efficiency and automation is your friend, because that increases the profitability of the organization. So if businesses can hand off the buying functionality to bots or AI agents, that removes the number of humans that are involved in that process. Humans can then go and do higher value duties, or you can reduce the number of humans within the organization. And that in turn helps to increase the profitability of the organization. So for all of these reasons are why we are saying that the future prediction is a-commerce or agentic commerce, and that it will be AI agents or bots, not humans, making these purchases. Now, a really quick scenario before we sort of pause for some questions. Still following the Nike process. So JD Sports negotiates a contract with Nike. As part of that contract, they negotiate pricing, they negotiate a product catalog, they negotiate minimum order volumes, etc. So the rules of the engagement are set up front, they're signed in a contract. That creates the framework. JD Sports can then set up an AI agent that handles purchasing responsibilities on behalf of JD Sports and Nike in Indonesia. Now, that AI agent can interact with the ERP platform and monitor inventory levels. It can look at sales volumes and sales trajectory and make predictions as to when that inventory is going to run out based on past habits or past behaviors. It can then place orders just in time for that inventory to be delivered. It can do all of that itself. It can then go and do the automatic ordering. And this would be where that agent interacts with Nike systems to be able to place an order, and Nike systems would come back and tell that agent, yes, your order has been accepted. If the order goes over a certain value or a rule that's been defined within the organization, this is where that human supervisor will come in and say, yes, I approve that, or no, I reject that. And this is the security and the controls that businesses can put in place. So you're not handing everything over to the AI agents. You can still put these checks and balances in place. The AI agent can process payment just before the payment terms have expired. It can then continue to monitor the inventory and then update its trends and then reorder accordingly. So as you can see, that is sort of that entire ordering process flow, but through the lens of what that would look like if it was being done by an AI agent and not a human. I'm going to pause there, so I think I can see some questions. So first one, in practice, how do we ensure that the B2B customer experience is consistent across all channels? Really good question. And in short, it's hard because there is typically different technology used across different channels. What we are seeing more and more is e-commerce platforms being used to present a combined front across multiple channels. So you might have the e-commerce platform driving the website. It might also power the mobile app. It might also power touch screens within store. And you're consolidating that through a single product to be able to do that. From a pricing and inventory perspective, the experience is typically consistent across all channels because ERP manages that at the core and it feeds it to whatever channel is needed. But the B2B customer experience in many instances is still fragmented. Another question, the company usually takes the vendor item from another company, but right now a lot of companies make their own. So they can make their own money turn only on their company using a B2B method. Example, company A is a vendor of company B, but company B think that we can make that company.
I think if I understand that question correctly, Cale, it's basically referring to companies or manufacturers that skip the distributors and sell on marketplaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would your response be to that? And how does that affect people whose business is actually in the distribution market?
I think...
And I hope I've gotten it correctly, Navantari, yeah?
I'm going to go back to, can you see, what slide can you see at the moment, Mo?
Growth avenues.
Growth avenues, okay, cool. If I'm to understand your question correctly, this is about a company skipping a distributor and selling directly, which is, I don't know, you may be familiar with the concept of, or you may have heard before within your masters about horizontal integration or vertical integration. Now, horizontal integration refers to a business where a company wants to expand its operations at the same level of the supply chain. So this might be Nike buying Adidas, and those two are joining together. You've then got the concept of vertical integration, which involves a company expanding a company's operations across different levels of the supply chain. So this might be a manufacturer acquiring a distributor, so they become a manufacturer and distributor, effectively cutting out the middleman. And this doesn't have to be through acquisition. It can be that they just choose to be manufacturer and distribution. But I think this is the easiest way to explain it. So if we go back to this diagram we saw here, where you've got manufacturer, rep firm, distributor, commercial business. In the world of horizontal integration, you've got the two manufacturers which join together. The rest of the supply chain remains the same. In vertical integration, the manufacturer, the rep, and the distributor might all be the same company, hence they're all purple. So therefore, cutting out all of those middle people and selling directly to the commercial organization. So if I'm to understand your question right there, you're asking about what I've just explained as vertical integration, which is the manufacturer owning more of the supply chain to then be able to sell directly with the customer. I hope I answered that correctly.
Yeah, she said that's what she meant, so that's all good.
Perfect, good.
Cool.
Any other questions? If not, I'm going to go to the final couple of slides. I can't believe there's no questions about e-commerce. Did everybody understand e-commerce and the concept of an AI agent taking ownership of that purchasing process?
we are starting to see a lot of new terms coming up nowadays. So from e-commerce, you're starting to see a-commerce, which is AI commerce. From search engine optimizations, we're starting to see AI optimization, or AOI, for example, or whatever the term is. So basically, we're starting to see all these terms popping up about AI as well. So yeah, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We've still got some time if you want to talk about anything. Yep.
So just to recap, the difference between B2B and B2C. B2B, lower order volume, higher value, compared to B2C, which is many orders, but they're only one pair of shoes. In B2B, education and efficiency is key, whereas in B2C, customers are after entertainment and convenience. In B2B, interpersonal relationships, particularly in that contracting stage, are still very key. But when it comes to purchasing, it's all about logic and features. And remember, we spoke about utility. It's not about the emotions and making you feel warm and fuzzy about the purchase, because it is purely transactional. You are there to buy something as part of your job, as Mo mentioned earlier. B2B is about long-term goals and long-term relationships, whereas B2C is much shorter. And B2B, from a sales cycle, particularly that upfront piece, when you think of the contract negotiation to be able to purchase volume, that is a much longer sales cycle, because there is so many more people involved than in B2C, where it is usually one person making a transaction with a business. There is not as many people involved in that process. Now, final slide, and then I will pull the slides down so I can see everybody's face and see the questions. We think this is a really exciting time to be in the world of B2B commerce. As I said, we do not see B2C, we do not see a-commerce or agentic commerce being rolled out broadly in the B2C environment as rapidly as we do in B2B. And that is because in B2C, there is still emotion. We still price comparison. We still look around for the best deal. That is a bit harder to do than in B2B, where you don't need to do any of that. It is, I am out of paper, order me more paper. It is very functional, very utilitarian, which is why we see e-commerce being adopted more broadly within the B2B landscape. And that, from our perspective, is really exciting to be in the world of technology at that time.
That is the question, Cale, on are we gradually moving from search engine optimization towards AIO, artificial intelligence optimization?
There's many different kind of schools of thought on this one, in that search engine optimization is structured data, and if you do a good job of if you do a good job for search engine optimization, you should be optimizing for AI as well, because SEO, like the Google bot, is a robot that is crawling your site looking for structured content, not too different to the way that AIO works. Now, different people have different schools of thought on this. Our SEO consultant is very much, if you optimize for search engine optimization, you are optimizing for AI optimization. That might evolve in the future, but for now, we are taking the approach, and with our clients, of focusing on search engine optimization, and we kind of tick two boxes at once.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if you have any questions and you would like to ask, just go for it. If you prefer to type, please do so as well. We'll hang around for a couple more minutes. And before we finish, if you have any questions or if you have any follow-up that you would like to do after this, you have our email addresses. You can find us on LinkedIn, connect with us. And if you have any questions, Cale and myself, we share quite a bit on LinkedIn as well. We post like some random stuff every now and then about e-commerce and the world of digital technology as well. So if that's something you're keen on and you want to follow us, please do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Get in touch. Mo can always help out with assignments too.
Yep. Cool.
Okay, is there any more questions from the participants? From ladies and gentlemen, maybe? You can ask the questions from chat, or either you can raise your hand and open your mic.
I think everyone is super hungry at the moment, thinking about Pasar Ramadan and what they can get over there. So probably you're not going to get that many questions now. What time is
Okay.
it now? You still have one more hour to go, right?
Yes, we have 1 more hour to go before we break our fast.
Yes.
Okay, so it is really, wow, it's exciting. What an insightful and inspiring discussion. We've covered so much in such a short time. From B2B towards B2C, we explored a lot more. It's not just about selling. We also understanding how digital transformation from traditional process towards technology-driven innovations like emerging AI and IoT, which reshaping the way businesses interact, scale, and creating values. A huge thank you for our incredible speakers, to Cale Maxwell and Mohamed Elgharabawy, for sharing their expertise and shedding light on how technology, especially in B2B strategy and innovations, for reshaping the industry. So, for the last things, if there is one takeaway, I'd like quote this from Cale and Mohamed. B2B e-commerce is about simplicity, efficiency, and making life easy. Thank you for your energy, engagement, and curiosity towards B2B. See you again at the next Tel-U Tech Talk.
Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you again,
Thank you all.
Mohamed and Cale.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Baik, kepada Bapak, Ibu, dan teman-teman semua, karena untuk hari ini sudah selesai, dipersilakan untuk meninggalkan Zoom-nya, serta jangan lupa untuk mengisi link absensi yang sudah saya kirimkan di dalam link chat. Untuk sertifikat sendiri akan dikirimkan setelah 3 hari waktu kerja. Terima kasih atas waktunya Bapak Ibu, saya tutup. Mohon maaf ada salah kata. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.